Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Hirsch, and I'm back for a new video today on how to have the best sex of your life through or after perimenopause and menopause. Because if you think that you're doomed and you're never gonna get that zest back, you are absolutely wrong. I can't wait to get into this, so if you're interested, stick around. If you don't know me, I am Dr. Heather Hirsch. I am a nationally renowned menopause and midlife expert. I now have a private telemedicine practice where we're taking patients in almost all 50 states, as well as an incredible platform for education for both prescribing providers as well as healthcare professionals. That's the Heather Hirsch Academy. Check those all out in the links in the description below. And without any further ado, let's get right into this week's video. First and foremost, the second you have any type of pain with intercourse, I want you to consider getting vaginal estrogen. Now, this is a prescription, and I don't even want you to consider it. I want you to fight for it, and you don't even have to fight for it, but if you need to, you're going to. Why? Vaginal estrogen is the #1 prescriptive medication that you need to stop pain once and for all. And the reason to do it the very first time this happened is because more pain causes more pain causes more pain. Because as women, the pelvic floor is very much connected to the brain. And we might get a very tight pelvic floor that says stay out, no, and you're also gonna lose your desire, because it doesn't feel good, right? So let's do a little bit more discussion on what vaginal estrogen is. And if you want a deep dive, check out this video here on the best types of vaginal estrogen. Vaginal estrogen is a prescription, and truthfully, it should be over the counter because it is so safe. It is safe for all women, despite your medical history, because it does not travel throughout the body systemically. Local vaginal estrogen is estrogen that stays just in the vagina, and it impacts the bladder, impacts the vagina, the labia, the clitoris, the urethra. That's called improving genitourinary syndrome of menopause, GSM, or what happens as we lose estrogen in the lower pelvis. As we lose estrogen, the pH of that tissue changes. It goes from where it likes to be in an acidic pH to a basic pH. And the only way to revert that pH is to add one of these vaginal estrogen prescriptions. In that environment at a low pH, those cells are really happy. They're making natural moistures and natural lubrication. It's allowing for elasticity, and you will never have pain again. The main ways that you can get estrogen is either in a cream like estrase or Premarin cream, a suppository like Vagifem or Uvifem. There's also something called the E-string or S-string. That is a ring that's placed in the back of the vagina, can stay for 90 days. And there is also specialized suppositories in Vixie, or there's DHEA that's a prescription that is called Interosa or Prastrode. Any one of these medications you should be able to get from your doctor, whether it's your family med, your internal medicine doc, or your gynecologist. These are absolutely necessary and going to save your life. If you have ever had problems getting these medications from a doctor, comment below. I will be sure to send them the safety data on vaginal estrogen because it is so safe. It should be over the counter. #2, if you've never used lubricants, this is a really good time to try lubricants. Now, lubricants alone are not going to help you avoid the pain and discomfort. All they're really going to do is reduce the friction, and they're basically going to be like a little bit of a slip and slide over the tissue. You are not going to want to substitute this for a vaginal estrogen product, but if you've never used them, some women really haven't, it is a really great time to either put away the stigma or the shame or the embarrassment and try out some lubrication. It really is gonna make things a little bit more slippery and a lot more pleasurable. There's lots and lots of brands that I like. Slippery Stuff and Uberlube are the ones that come to mind, and these can really, really help. All right, now what about moisturizers? Moisturizers can be a very, very important piece as well. Again, I would not substitute this without your vaginal estrogen products, because what a moisturizer will do is to help the water content of the tissue so it's a little bit plumper. That way it's just a little bit more resilient, and so moisturizers can be very, very helpful. There's a number of them that I really like. I like the moisturizers from FemPharma, Sweet Spots Labs, and even Naomi Watts's company Stripes. They all have really great moisturizers that you can definitely try out. For a lot of women, especially once you're postmenopausal, sex can be so freeing because finally, for once, you don't have to worry about an unintended pregnancy. Hopefully you don't have to worry about bleeding, whether it was coming or was not coming, or all of a sudden there was an accident, and it can feel so liberating that actually your body is for you again. And this is something that I hope you find super, super empowering. Now, if you're on the perimenopause journey, which can be really tough because you might be even having more bleeding, we'll talk about that in a second, here is what I want you to know is that actually there really is light at the end of the tunnel. And being able to reclaim your body as yours and yours alone is really, really free. Another thing that's so great is a lot of women really actually start to know their bodies after they've actually had children or they're done with their reproductive years, which sounds crazy, but it's actually true. I think that there is some psychology behind the fact that as women of reproductive age, that is the first thing subconsciously on our minds. And when you're no longer going to be having sex for the purpose, subconscious or not, of reproduction, it really means that you can learn about what you really like, whether it's positions, whether it's toys, whether it's anything. Definitely feel like it is time to express yourself. Because most of my patients tell me the number of F's they give as they go through menopause decreases. So make sure that's also in the bedroom. If you're in perimenopause and you're having really terrible bleeding, this is not going to make sex fun. And in fact, the less pleasurable sex is, the less exciting and fun it is, the less you're going to want to do it, right? That makes absolute sense. But this is something called neuroplasticity. When we do something new, for example, I just started skiing. My brain's just so excited thinking about skiing and how I put the boots on and how you turn. That's the same thing with sex. But if I were to just kind of stop that hobby, my brain would actually stop thinking about it because it's not something that's on my mind anymore. The same thing happens with sex. Now, this is actually very common in late perimenopause into early menopause, the last few years before menopause and the first 2 to 3 years after menopause. And bleeding can be a really huge reason why. So what can you do to help control bleeding? Well, there's lots of things that you can do and consider. The first thing that you can do is actually try a intrauterine device. In fact, I have a whole video on the benefits of IUDs in perimenopause here. Now, I know what you might be thinking, didn't you just say like my chances of getting pregnant are lower? I'm almost in menopause, I'm not gonna get pregnant again. Why would I use birth control? Well, the IUD is actually secondarily causing inability to reproduce. It actually, what it's doing is it's releasing progesterone to the uterine lining. It's making it really, really thin. Nothing builds up and nothing comes out. So it can be really, really liberating because most women, not all, but most women actually have very, very light bleeding or no periods at all. And especially if you're someone who's really, really struggling with this bleed to you drop like type of perimenopause where it feels like most days you're bleeding or you're getting ready for bleeding, of course you're not going to want to engage in sex. So stopping the bleeding can be very helpful if your sex life is really important. Other things that you can do to stop bleeding would be to go on a birth control pill, although that's not as popular because most women also don't want to use birth control pills if they're so close to menopause, but that can be used to stop bleeding. You could also consider a uterine artery embolization, which is a procedure that a radiologist would do, an ablation, or a hysterectomy. But all I wanted to say is that stopping the bleeding can be really helpful because it's a huge downer when it comes to your sexual health. And lastly, I have whole videos dedicated to these topics, but there are medications to help desire. So desire actually comes from the brain. In fact, most women, when it comes to our sexual health and the way the medications work, is actually by changing the way we think about sex, that neuroplasticity, right? So our first option is to use low physiologic doses of transdermal testosterone. This is a prescription only. It's something we do at my clinic routinely. And we give women with low levels of testosterone, very, very small levels, to see if that helps to improve their desire. Are they thinking about sex? Now remember, step number 1, which is the most important, you want to make sure it doesn't hurt because we can give you all the desire in the world, but if it still hurts, you're not going to want to do it. So remember, that's your vaginal estrogen, your lubricants, and your moisturizers. The other medications that we have for low libido, what we call hypoactive sexual desire disorder, is Addy or flibanserin. I've got a whole video here and you can see how this medication works, but it is the first FDA-approved non-hormonal medication for perimenopausal women, although we use it in women in menopause all the time, for low libido. It's an oral tab taken once daily at bedtime that can really help you reignite that desire. And lastly, there's a medication called Vyleesi or bromelainitide. It's an as-needed injectable that's also good for female desire. All right, I hope you learned that sex after perimenopause or menopause can absolutely be the most amazing time for intimacy in your entire life. I hope I've given you a lot of reasons why. Tell me in the comments, what else would you add to this list? Or where are you stuck or frustrated? If you'd like to work with me, definitely check out all the links below. Go to jointhecollaborative.com to check out our medical practice. Or if you are a prescriber, go to heatherhirschacademy.com. I would love to work with you there. Or for all my free resources, binge all my YouTube content, consider subscribing. It's free to do so, and I would love to have you over here in this community. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode. Bye, guys.